Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Melissa Sweat. I'm Customer Relationship and Community Manager at people-onthego, and I'll be moderating our session today. Before we start, let's just do a quick check to make sure that you can hear me just fine and see the screen. Please go ahead and locate the questions panel and just type in a brief hi, hello, and okay, and all systems go. Hi, Anne, thank you. Thank you, Louis. I'll wait for a few more confirmations. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, looks like everything's good. And by the way, that's the same questions panel that we'll be using to take questions. We're going to save questions more toward the very end of the webinar, but if anything comes up in your mind, please feel free to ask it there. If you are needing assistance, the number to call is right there on the screen, 1-800-263-6317, and we'll also be sharing a copy of the recording with you tomorrow. So just a quick background about why we have these sessions, especially for those who are with us for the first time. We have these sessions because our focus at people-onthego is productivity and leadership in the workplace. And the topics that you see on the screen are the topics that we cover. Today's webinar is Designing for Service, Happy Team, Happy Customer. And I have with me Eric Flowers and Megan Miller. Eric Flowers is a principal service designer at Intuit, a financial services company and maker of TurboTax, Mint, and QuickBooks. He is re-envisioning customer experiences and building organizational capacity inside the company to design end-to-end and surface to core. Megan Miller is Service Design Manager for Stanford University IT, where her team works to design seamless and quality customer experiences for the university. She is building momentum around service design and inspiring colleagues to embrace true end-to-end thinking. Both Eric and Megan are co-founders of practicalservicedesign.com, an online resource and community of practice for service designers around the world. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Megan and Eric.
Hello, everybody.
Thanks for the intro. Hello, everyone. All right, we're going to get started. It's going to take us a second to get our slides up.
There you go.
Okay.
You'll have to let us know if you can see those all right.
Yeah, looks great.
Yeah, so you see the slides? Good?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Okay, great. So we're going to get started.
How do I close the webinar?
We're trying to close GoToWebinar so that we can just see our slides. Hold on one second.
There we go.
There we go.
Cool.
All right. So as you mentioned, we are the co-founders of practicalservicedesign.com. This is a community resource. We have over 2,200 people in our online community learning about service design, and we wanted to share some of that with you today. So we hope that this talk is interesting and provocative. And if you have questions that come up for you in the talk, be sure to put those on the questions panel so that at the end when we do some Q&A, we can get to those. All right.
All right.
We'll get started.
All right, so we have this word service, and I think most of us know what service means. And then the word design, and most people are going to know what the word design means. When you put them next to each other and take out the period, we have service design. So what exactly is service design as a discipline and as a method? So if we look at this quote from Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, he says the lines between hardware, software, and services are blurred or disappearing. So if we think about a product and something that's made, imagine a hammer is something that we make and offer to our customers. Then think about the complete other end of the spectrum where we have somebody you hire to come and do the hammering for you as a service. And between these two extremes on this continuum, we have pure product on the left and pure service on the right. But there's all sorts of things between that can happen to help people accomplish their goal of whatever they're trying to use the hammer for. And that could be providing specialized different types of hammers for certain jobs. That could be renting hammers for people to not have to buy but come and use on their own. We can have hammering specialists who will help tell you how to hammer, but not actually do it for you. And then something in between where you could have hammering done, downloaded from the cloud. So we can talk about designing for service and what this means. When you're serving somebody's needs, you are performing or providing something to them, or facilitating, enabling, or assisting them in reaching the goal that they're trying to make progress towards. The customer benefit of service design is that we want to create end-to-end experiences that are frictionless, cohesive, and designed from the customer point of view. At the same time, there is a deep organization benefit for us where we want to improve our underlying support structures, employee experiences, and end-to-end understanding of what it is we're offering. So designing for service is that practical application of design to ensure the successful delivery of the customer and organizational benefits. Okay, so let's set the stage of how we can look at a metaphor for service design. Imagine a super fancy, nice opera house. And everything you see here is what we would consider things on the front stage and where the customers go to experience how we're trying to serve their goal and their need, which is to attend an opera. And so you see all the lighting, you see all the decorations, you see all the architecture, you see the orchestra pit up front, which is a part of the front stage experience, and then the stage itself. But behind that stage, there's a whole backstage going on that should be mostly invisible to the audience, to the customer, where you have the cast and the crew preparing and waiting to get everything ready. You've got all the lighting and the sound, you've got all the scaffolding and structure for the set pieces that produce that front stage experience. And this is all things that should be hidden from the customer so it doesn't break the kind of line of visibility between the front stage and the backstage. And so the front stage, if you're thinking about designing for service in business, would be all the different channels that customers go through, the different products we provide, all the actors, the people that interact with the customer, all the touch points and interfaces that are interacted with. These are all the things that are visible to the customer. Then we have the backstage, which isn't visible, and these are the processes, policies, the actors, be it the backstage staff or us as the designers and developers or people who create the backstage, all the systems and technology. This is that split between what the customer sees and what they don't see and where we produce. The backstage is what creates the front stage. Then there's a third, even further back element to this called the behind the scenes. And these are kind of more intangible things that guide and constrain what those stages can be. Things like guiding principles, internal organizational constraints, different rules and regulations. The behind the scenes is what allows the backstage to function, however it's going to function, which then produces the front stage. And so you have this model of a front stage and a backstage, and then everything that happens behind the scenes on our end, and then an unknowable customers behind the scenes. It's their lives, it's their experience that is different for every customer, and we can never really have knowledge of. So if you think about something like a fancy ride-sharing service like Uber or Lyft, where you call a car, to the customer, to that front stage, it should be as seamless and as easy as just hitting the button on your phone, and the car shows up, you ride, check your email, you get out, say goodbye, and then you're done with the experience. And that's how they want you to see the front stage. But if you think about the backstage and the behind the scenes of this two-sided communication between the rider and the driver and all the systems and processes that make the ride happen, there's a whole lot more going on that has to be choreographed and orchestrated to make the ride possible. And so there's this mediation between us, the service providers who are designing and owning the service. In this case, it would be that middle, the middle gray layer, and then the driver is on one side and the rider is on the other. And we have to facilitate how this service gets delivered through how we design these processes. And so you don't have to be a service provider to design for service, because to serve is human and service is being human. And so let's take a look at a real human experience that'll take us through how we can deconstruct what it means to serve a goal and a need.
All right. So imagine you get up, it's 6 in the morning, and you hit the highway with your dad and your best friend in the car, and you drive for a few hours down the 101. Your goal is to ride the Super Coaster 5000 at the Great America Theme Park. So you get there, there's a giant parking lot, you spend way more time than you thought you would trying to park your car, find a shuttle, walk back over to the entrance to the park, find your way, remember where you parked your car. And then you get in line, and you're waiting in line to get tickets. They scan your tickets at the gate, and you're in, and the park looks beautiful. It's the start of the day. You don't see any litter. You don't see any cotton candy anywhere. And you start to explore the park. You get in line for the roller coaster. It's a long wait, 45 minutes. The sun is beating down on you. You're waiting. You're hanging out with your friend. And finally, you get to ride the Super Coaster 5000 roller coaster, the thing you've been waiting for all day. It's an awesome ride. Well, some people might think it's an awesome ride. And you have the time of your life. You spend your day at the park, you grab some convenience food aimed to be filling and fast to support you in getting around the park and having the best experience. And at the end of the day, you drive home and you have your souvenir to remember your experience going to the park. So this is a classic service experience, an experience that you have of this giant theme park. So let's talk a little bit about deconstructing that stage that Eric mentioned and the things that go into making up a service experience. A key concept here is this concept of a touch point. A touch point is a point of interaction between the customer and the service. So this could be anything from a billing statement to an email to a phone call to a website, an in-person experience. Maybe you're at a store downtown or going in to get help. These are all touch points that we have with our customers. Now, our service ecosystem is made up of all of those touch points that are available for a customer to experience of our service. And touch points, they happen in what we call channels. And imagine a channel being the medium in which the touch point is taking place. So one channel could be digital, another channel could be the phone, another channel could be in person. So you get the idea. These touch points can happen in multiple channels.
So if you think about the Super Coaster 5000, it's something that was built and engineered and designed by a whole team of people, and the coaster itself could be, considered to have a whole bunch of touch points and interactions throughout it. But in the sense of the entire ecosystem of the park, it is one touch point among many other possible touch points throughout the entire park. You have the old Ferris wheel that's been there forever that people come and love to ride, and they have for decades. You've got the guest services and the cleanup crew and the gift shop and all the various actors that are visible to the attendees to the amusement park that help make it a nice experience. You've got all the marketing and advertising and everything that happens outside of the park to help draw people in and want to come in and have a park experience. And then you've got the gates, that kind of entry process of how we take someone from being a potential customer to being a customer inside of our ecosystem. All of these things make up the park ecosystem. And then as customers and people come through the park, they go from touch point to touch point, creating their own experience as they go and lining things up in a way that's different every single time they go through the park. And so you get these lines of touch points that create their individual customer experience every time they go through, and they order these things in the way that they want for their own experience. And it's different every time for each customer, because we can't design what they're going to do. We can only design the touch points and help set things up and design for service on how we're going to serve that need of them wanting to have a good time at the park. And so as you look at these ecosystems and all these touch points, there are countless ways that they can go through and experience things that we can never quite predict. And so having your ecosystem be cohesive and seamless and designed for these experiences is essential, because each and every time the customer goes through it, they're going to construct an experience of their own. We can only set the stage, that front stage and backstage of the customer's journey. So we act in service of these customers' needs and goals, and designing for service is how we ensure the successful delivery in helping them make progress towards the goal. So as you think about your own businesses and your own offerings, can you see all the stages that you have set and how your customers go from touch point to touch point through the channels, through the ecosystem, creating their own experiences each time?
So let's talk about how do we design for this. If a customer can kind of create their own experience every time, what can we do to help support the best and consistent experience that they could have with our services? So let's think about a practical project process. The first thing you want to do if you want to improve your service and the experience that your customers are having is identify what we call an opportunity space. You can't fix everything at once, so we want you to focus in on something first. So this opportunity space could be something like the onboarding process for new users, or customer retention, or billing, or first-time use experience. So thinking about your particular service or your company and what they offer, how do you define an opportunity space that you could dig into a little deeper to improve that customer experience? Next, we go into service blueprinting. Service blueprinting is a fantastic tool to basically take a look at this end-to-end of your customer's experience of that particular part of your service and blueprint out how we are delivering that service at every step. So this is a great tool to get a sense of what's really going on both on that front stage for the customer, but also on the backstage of how you're delivering your service. From service blueprinting, you can really quickly identify some strategic directions you might want to take your service, and also some tactical fixes of how you might want to fix a particular touch point of your service. So this practical approach to service design is about taking action. It's about creating actionable work that your organization can put right into your roadmaps or your backlogs. So let's talk a little bit deeper about service blueprinting, because we really truly believe this is a method that can help anybody. You don't have to be a designer to do service blueprinting. This is a tool that that anyone can pick up. It might be something that project managers want to add to their belt as they go through kind of managing projects, or even product managers might want to add to their belt. But really anyone can kind of set up a blueprinting session, and we have some tools to help you do that if you're interested. So blueprinting, this is a co-created document basically that looks at this end-to-end of the customer journey and analyzes what we call the surface to core of your business and how it delivers that journey. And co-created means that we're getting a lot of people together in the room and creating this at the same time. It also really captures that reality of your internal organization and the experience that people working behind the scenes might be having in delivering your service. So here's an example blueprint. This is the new member sign-up process for our practical service design community. We blueprinted it out because we wanted to see how hard it was for people to get into Slack. We use Slack for our community. So we've got the end-to-end capturing the staggering 13 steps it takes to request to be part of the community and get into the Slack community. And below that, you've got the surface to core of all the stuff that we're doing behind the scenes to get people added in. So this was a wonderful exercise where we realized there were all sorts of pain points that we could be improving about our new member sign-up process. Here's another blueprint that we worked on with a company called Loot Crate. where we were looking at customer retention. So we were blueprinting out several different phases of choosing what crate they wanted to order, purchasing the crate, the pre-purchase shipping step, the shipping step. So we were really mapping out, helping them map out what is the customer's experience across all these phases of their product and their service that they provide, and what are all those things that are going on behind the scenes that they might want to improve. So service design really takes this holistic approach to looking at your service and your ecosystem. It uses the customer's viewpoint to help ground us in analyzing what's going on behind the scenes. And you want to gather the team that represents that holistic service, not just your internal silos of your business, but you want to look at that customer experience and say, oh, wow, we should have someone from marketing, from development, from customer support. We should have all these different people in the room because this customer in their journey touched on all of those parts of our business. So it's not a view of how it was designed, it's a view of how it was delivered, and that's what blueprinting really gets us. If you get all the right people in the room and you go through this process, it can really help you look end to end at our services and not just get stuck in a particular touch point like our website or our app or our form or whatever we have. And it also activates your organization. So this helps you become more customer-backed. It creates a visceral shared artifact you can print out really big, put it in the hallway. It helps bust those silos in your organization. And often this can be the first time that you're really seeing end-to-end across all these teams. So using this process, you can really get actionable insights in just a matter of hours. So I mentioned we have some resources. The first one I want to tell you about today is we have an ebook guide to practical service blueprinting. It's kind of a step-by-step guide with a bunch of templates and other things to get you started, and also a facilitator guide if it's your first time leading a session like this. We have a guide on that that you can get from our site at practicalservicedesign.com. So we want to end with some predictions and provocations just to get you guys thinking.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the first one is that the medium of your brand will become irrelevant, and the only thing customers will attach to your name will be the service you provide them.
Touchpoint design will not be enough to differentiate in the future. Differentiation will come through the relationship that you have with your customers and how you serve them over time.
Holistic experiences require holistic organizations. What you produce mirrors how you are organized internally. Cross-silo coordination will be the key to delivering outcomes.
In the future, and now even, customers are adopting more fluid expectations. They expect quality services to feel the same across categories and contexts. Think comparing my experience with Uber with my online banking or my healthcare.
Employee experience will become a design priority. So design thinking will be applied to how experiences are produced and services delivered internally.
And building service design capability will be essential. This is a much needed tool for companies to better design and deliver these exceptional customer experiences.
So remember, what you make is not who you are. What you provide is not who you are. Your brand is not who you are. How you serve is who you are. Thank you.
Wonderful job. I'm going to go ahead and transfer
a couple other things I want to make sure people see before we go. If this is interesting to you and you really want to learn a little deeper on some of the terminology and core concepts of service design, I am talking next week about kind of making the leap from whatever your current role is to service design. So if you're interested, you can check that out and join me to go a little deeper into these core concepts. And you can definitely stay in touch. We're very accessible. You can come talk to us on Twitter. You can get the guide, as I mentioned, but also consider joining the community if you want to get into this and start practicing. There's 2,000 people also trying to do the same thing. So you can find that community that can really help jumpstart your way into service design as a field if you're interested.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Megan and Eric. I'm going to go ahead and transfer back over to my slides, and then we'll get into the Q&A in just a moment. If you have any questions, please go ahead and start asking them, and we'll get to them at the end here. I did go ahead and share those links that our presenters provided, both of them there, so please feel free to check those out. And once more, here are Eric and Megan's contact info if you'd like to be in touch, their emails and their website here.
Great.
And just a couple of reminders before we get into the Q&A. We would really appreciate if you would become an active member of our community online. You can follow our blog and also join our Accomplishing More with Less groups on Facebook and LinkedIn. That's actually where we're going to be posting the recording, and we'll send a little reminder email about that tomorrow with some handy links. And please also, if you haven't, check out Pierre's new book, Perfect 15-Minute Day. You can find information on it on our Facebook page. You can also follow Pierre on Twitter. One more reminder before we get into the Q&A, we have some upcoming webinars for you. Microsoft Word coming up on the 6th of next month, PowerPoint also on the 6th later that day, and then our Accomplishing More with Less series coming up at the end of April and early May. Okay, and now for our Q&A. Yeah, here's a great question. How do you go about communicating the value of service design to an organization, especially an established organization? Does embracing service design depend on a certain amount of design maturity in the organization?
That is a fantastic question and is kind of my daily challenge. I think all of our daily challenge if we're working in this area. Most companies here in the US really haven't embraced service design. Even the companies that you think might have don't really acknowledge that this could be its own sort of unique role or discipline and might require a different function in the organization. Expressing the value, I think you really need to speak in the terms of the business. So you need to talk about what this can do to improve that particular customer's experience, what it could do to affect the bottom line. You need to learn how to translate what using design thinking to look holistically across a service, and maybe even getting permission to, for example, apply design to the billing part of your service. Like, that's pretty rare. I think we often put design into a bucket, and saying we could apply design to all areas of our business is actually pretty rare these days. So I think showing the value of being user-centered and talking about how it can affect the business outcomes is really the way to focus. Anything to add to that?
Any company that wants to be customer-centric, you know, it doesn't have to necessarily be a design-oriented company. It doesn't have to have a big design team for people to want to better orchestrate, you know, how the organization is producing whatever they offer. Because if you're a business, you're offering something. You're helping people do something. And, you know, service design is different from other types of design where it really can be applied to anything that's a system or a process. And every business is just a collection of systems and processes, both the things on that front stage the customers go through, and then really internally on the backstage or behind the scenes where we're all working to try and produce what the customers experience.
Yeah. Great, wonderful. Thank you so much for that question. Another question here: how do you, you know, is this part of your process? What about the review aspect of it? How do you really start to incorporate reviewing the performance and success of some of the, you know, service design improvements that you're implementing?
This is another one of those questions that gets asked every single time, which is how do you measure the outcome or success of a service design effort?
Yeah.
And you measure it like any other improvement effort or any other rollout effort. So you need to be defining your metrics or your KPIs or whatnot for your service. What are those KPIs? And if we go about improving one phase of the business, do you have KPIs set up for that phase of the business to measure whether onboarding is successful? You should try to think about how do you measure your business success overall, and then if we hit and improve this part of the business, what are the KPIs that we should see change when it's implemented or changed? So Eric has a great example of reducing call volume around a very particular thing. I don't know if you want to tell in brief what that one is. That's a great example.
We had a scenario that resulted in a lot of customer care contacts, phone calls, and the steps a customer had to take to get to the actual call and the things they had to go through. There was a lot of teams, there were a lot of different silos that the customer crossed without realizing it, but nobody really worked together. Nobody really knew what was ending up in that final phone call to customer support. And so by blueprinting it out and taking that, how do we design for service mindset, we can look end to end and look way upstream and see how these things are all adding up that result in the pain that ends up in the phone call. And then as we want to improve and measure, like was asked, we don't just look at the reduction in call volume, which is a big part of it, but we have those listening posts set up all along the way that are looking for data and are looking for some sort of change in places other than just the endpoint, which in this case would have been the phone call. Every step and every silo and every touch point and interaction along the way has to have some sort of measure of is this effective or is this a place where things break down? Is it a friction? Is it a failure? And how does it build up over time? And hopefully eventually arriving at root cause. But if you don't have listening posts set up and if you're not capturing data along the way, that's something that you need to have and need to work on because you can't just look at the end result of how do we as the providers even understand that there's a pain because we're not looking at it all the way down the customer's journey. We're only looking at it when we finally realize it and it's too late. And so you should be measuring things upstream and saying, once you've defined that journey, once you've defined where the pains are, saying, can we figure out if we're stopping this up here and what listening posts and what kind of data can we capture to know that that's happening?
So it's really like working with the parts of the business that that could be setting up these listening posts or KPIs or particular ways to measure and benchmark the success for your business. So there's nothing unique about measuring success of service design projects. It's all just about how you're improving your business and what part of the business are you working on in your project.
Well, wonderful. Thank you again so much, Eric and Megan, for your presentation, and thank you all for joining. We're at time here, so I'm going to go ahead and end the session. One more reminder is that when you exit the session today, a feedback form will pop up, and we would greatly appreciate your feedback. Thank you all again, and I look forward to having you at a future event. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, guys.